The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations, that's forming a phonic.
Good evening and welcome back to the Blueprint Podcast. Hey, let me tell you something. I am truly and genuinely excited to be back with you guys. Let me start out by saying I want to thank you for your support each and every week on the Blueprint. Hey, look, this is just really exciting. This week's it's been a busy week. I'm actually usually in my man cave in Mount Vernon, New York, but my brother, I want to shout out to him. First of all, I want to say Happy Veterans Day, right, to each and everyone who served our country and served our country well. I want to say happy anniversary to you guys. Happy Veterans Day to you guys. I'm actually in Fayetteville, North Carolina, down here with my brother, Doug Moore. And Doug is, of course, a veteran. And he just recently retired for the second time. He retired from active duty. And now he was working for the military and just retired genuinely again. And so there was a surprise veteran, happy retirement party for him. I drove down here on Friday morning, arrived in Fayetteville at around 1:30, 2 o'clock. My mom, my aunts, everybody was down here. It was a wonderful surprise on yesterday. I wasn't surprised, but he was surprised, and he's hard to surprise. So he truly and genuinely deserved to have this party. Um, you know, Look, when you work all these years, when you spend all these years doing your, you know, working, doing your career, serving people, and sometimes people just go away with no recognition, right? But we all are glad. Our family, his friends, we were all proud to be able to do this for him, and to be not only just to do it, but to be present as well. So, it's a happy Veterans Day, and of course he's a veteran, and I want to say happy retirement to my brother Douglas Moore. And it's so crazy, when you work so long, right? Is Just imagine this: either you start school, and that's work because you're working on you're doing the things, even though you don't know it, you're doing the things that are necessary, right, for you to become successful in the future. You don't know that, but your parents do. Your parents know that, hey, you need this education. You need elementary school, middle school, and high school, and you're setting a foundation, right? And hopefully by the time you get towards the end of your high school career, you're thinking or dreaming, or you have a vision or a plan or a blueprint for what you want to do in your future. That's why this is called a blueprint, right? You need to have a blueprint about what you think, at least 3 to 5 things that you think you may want to be in the future, right? And so, uh, you know, and then after it's all said and done, you get to retire, right? And sometimes we just don't know what it is to retire. We don't know what to do when we retire, right? And my brother Doug had called me and asked me, "Hey, what do I do?" I said, "Check this out, man. When you when tomorrow comes, you don't have to get up and go anywhere. You get to do whatever you want to do, right? But it's a weird feeling not to be doing something, or not to have to go punch that clock, develop or grow your career, or get educated for your career. And so it is a weird feeling, right? I know how he feels, right? And I want to also say to my cousin Pete, he retired a few weeks ago, and man, it's a weird feeling. You just don't know what to do with yourself, right? And it's crazy. I say, if you retire, find something now again that you love to do and engage in it. So that's my little spill on retirement. And so let me say real quickly, let me just jump right into it. Let me go to my book of the week or books of the week. Uh, we're going to talk a little bit about this a little bit later. Matter of fact, the book of the week, my guest, who I'll introduce later, it is his book, The Greatest Story Never Told. That's my book of the week. I'm excited to bring it to you. And also, before I move on, I want to show this little video on it that he produced, right? In terms of this book, explaining what this book is.
This is the greatest story never told. This is the story of Babe Ruth and Jackie Robinson. This is the story of two kids who wanted to know why they were, in their minds, created different. But at the end of the day, the Babe and Jackie get together and teach the kids that we are all created equal. The one thing about the Babe is he was wonderful to the children, and he was wonderful to the less fortunate. He was wonderful to the aspect. He knew that racism was wrong. The Babe had snuck out of the hospital, and he had been at Ebbets Field for opening day to see Jackie Robinson play, the first African American to play in a major league game. And even though the Babe had cancer, he insisted upon being there. He also knew when he went to Ebbets Field to talk to the Jackie about what was going on, about the aspect of racism, the powers that were did not appreciate the Babe doing this because he was opening up a can of worms as far as they were concerned. There were so many things about the Babe and the aspect of what he believed, and that's why I do call my story the greatest story never told, because there were so many things about the Babe that were never told. The most powerful word in the world, whether it was Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King or John, Paul, George, and Ringo, they always talked about love, okay? And if in the end of the book, remember that, what the kids said to the Babe. We love you, Babe Ruth.
Awesome. That's my book of the week, right? The greatest story never told, right? Well, I'm sure we're going to have a conversation about that a little bit later, but here's my word of the week. My word of the week is miracles. Miracles, right? And these are things that happen that are just unnatural. They're just unnatural causes, right? Like like when they call them what the the Yankees miracles, and that was one of the books that was on that screen as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But miracles, I mean, we're always looking for miracles, right? But I like to look at it like this: we should every day be looking for blessings, right? Blessings you can get every day. Miracles happen every now and then. But hey, when you need a miracle, anything is possible. Awesome. So now let me go to my affirmation, right? I got to read a few of these things here because it says, I found it to be intriguing. It says, I absolutely love this. All of it. I'm not going to say all of them, but it says, number one, compliment three people every day. Watch the sunrise at least once a year. Be the first to say hello. When you're coming down the street, man, everybody's looking eye to eye, you're walking past each other, and nobody speaks. I think because somebody's looking for somebody to say something first, right? That's why I always say when I see people and when on my walks, the first thing I say when I make eye contact is to say hello, right? Live beneath your means. Treat everyone like you want to be treated. Never give up on anybody. Miracles happen. Forget the Joneses. That's no disrespect to any of the Joneses I know. Forget the Joneses, just a saying that they used to say in the past, right? And then it says, never deprive someone of hope. It may be all he has. Pray not for things, but for wisdom and courage. Be tough minded, but tender hearted. Be kind, be a kinder than necessary. Don't forget a person, a person's greatest emotional needs is the need to feel appreciated. And I'll stop there. The list is there. If you need it, let me know. Right. And that's my Hill Hopper, Pierce Hopper affirmation quote moment. And here's my movie, right? My movie and music of the week, right? Paul McCure, right? Everybody knows this one. Waymaker, miracle worker, right? Just an awesome song. One of my everyday go-to songs on every day. Waymaker. And then my movie of the week. I don't know if many people got a chance to see this. Is out recently. Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro got a chance to see it. It is super long. I mean, it's one of the longest movies I've ever seen. Um, but it wasn't boring, right? It says Killers of the Flower Moon, right? It's about Native Americans. You have to go see this. I mean, it's a really greatly done, but it is a tragic story. I mean, of the things that happened in the past, particularly to Native Americans. I mean, in my estimation, it's a must-see movie, right? If you can endure how long it is, but it is a must-see movie. All right, and my person of the week, Mariano Rivera. I had an opportunity to meet Mario some years back. Um, and had the opportunity to give him the Denzel Washington Award at the Boys and Girls Club of Mount Vernon's gala. What a just a superhuman being. I'm sure we're gonna have a conversation about him a little bit later. What an amazing baseball player. Actually, one of the only times that I was at a gala, it wasn't my gala, but I was at a fundraising event, and it was actually one of the things I ended up bidding on, and which I actually got was Mariano's last pitch where he's standing on the mound. And man, what a perfect pitcher and what a perfect human being. Just I love that guy, man. He's just amazing. And of course, he helped to be a part of the Yankee miracles. And so that is my person of the week. All right, let's move on. Yeah, I want to say happy birthday to Gwen. Yeah, well, I no longer call people sister and brother-in-laws. They just sisters and brothers. And this is my sister Gwen, and I want to say happy birthday to her. Right, she celebrated on 11/10. This is my wife called this month broke member, right? Because everybody's birthday is in November. I mean, so we got a lot of them. So let's get going. Happy anniversary to my brother Curtis and his lovely wife Carla. I want to say happy birthday to them both. I just left Curtis and Carla on yesterday, right? And I'm going to be seeing, I'll be down here until next week, hanging out with my brother, trying to help him get used to being retired, right? We're going to just hang out. All right. And then next is don't forget, if you're in Mount Vernon, New York, or in the surrounding area of New York, right? The Revelators Dance Troupe. These young people are so amazing. They're presenting the Wiz. Back in the day when my kids were young, they participated in the Wiz with a twist. Right now, we all know the Wiz, right? The Wiz, they're gonna do an amazing job. They will be doing an amazing job, right? And it's on Saturday, November the 18th at 5 o'clock, and Sunday, November the 19th at 5 o'clock. The Wiz. And coming soon, that's next week, November the 19th, we're going to have Reginald Howard, former Negro League player. And Mr. Howard is 90 years old. He's going to be on the show next week. I'm looking forward to it because I just love. I'm going to pull out my Negro League jacket, man, with all the teams all over it, and my Negro League hat, man. And I'm going to be dressed to the max with my Negro League stuff on next week. And I'm looking forward to meeting Mr. Howard for the first time. So I guess without further ado, if there's nothing else, I want to show you this video, and then I'll introduce my guests for this week.
Take the can a little, Ray. Don't be a punk.
Give me the can.
With nothing better to do but find trouble in the burning down South Bronx of the 1970s, it's a mystery when one of the most powerful owners in all of sports collides with 17-year-old graffiti-bound Ray Negron. And he gave Ray a second chance by making him the New York Yankees batboy. And from that moment on, Ray's story of redemption changes his life forever.
I don't really care. Isn't that funny? I don't really care whether they like me. I'd like them to respect me.
So because of that incident, like me seeing the killing, Bronx Tale, Ray getting arrested when he was 17 doing graffiti, your life could change like that.
Ray Negron is a guy you probably never heard of. Growing up, he evolved out of the rubble in what was once described as the war zone and unforgiving mean streets of New York City's South Bronx, which in this case was a place littered with crime, violence, and abandoned buildings marking the streets.
No one ever understood the pain that I was going through.
I swear to God that I'm going to be a better father than the father that he never was.
Guys like Ray came into my life, and guys like Ron Doc, that they both hooked together to try to save myself and Doc Gooden.
And basically in 95, Ray saved my life because even though my suspension, early on in my suspension, I had a couple of relapses, but Ray was right there. He never gave up on me. He helped I got to the right places. He the one started me going to the meetings.
My mom, who was doing her best, she was trying to get me a new father. So she married Cirillo, who was an incredible, wonderful man. Couldn't have a better stepfather.
In the holidays, I would get the black Barbie. She got the white Barbie. So I can understand why Ray felt this way.
But then one day,
I knew about the story because Thurman had brought it home and shared it with me because he just loved Ray so much.
the spirits of these individuals are there and they're watching it. And I showed that to Derek.
Just maybe Ray Negron's shortcomings and motivational journey will be an inspiration to the millions of children around the world struggling to find their existence, living without a mentor in a divided world filled with stereotyping, jealousy, and hatred. How did this happen? This kid off the streets of the South Bronx, abandoned by his father, in conflict and insecure with the color of his skin, becomes the confidant to some of the biggest names in sports.
And then Mr. Steinbrenner,
You ever hear the saying, yo, you can't make this up? You know, it's that story.
Ray Negron. You'll wish you could live his miracles over and over. Batboy, the Ray Negron story. A story you'll never forget.
Welcome, Ray Negron.
Hey, brother.
Hey, man. Let me tell you, man, that brought a tear to my eye, man. I was like messed up on it over it. Especially I was just with Darryl Strawberry, not this past Sunday before last. I was at the Sunday before that. I was at church at Harvest Time up in Greenwich, right outside of the Westchester Airport. and
Right.
he was the speaker for the morning.
Right.
And of course, I had met Daryl. I'm a part of an organization called the King Movement, and he was our keynote speaker at the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's death in Memphis, and he was the keynote speaker for our dinner. So we exchanged numbers and different things like that, man. So to see those two guys, and also I was with uh, I'm trying to think of the name, Steiner Sports, right? Uh, and
Brandon Steiner.
Brandon Steiner. I was with Brandon at a event he was doing Doc's book.
Okay.
And so I met Doc Gooden back then and we had a long conversation with him, and to see so many amazing gifted athletes, right? And to see the situations that they were experiencing in their lives, even though they were great athletes. But to see, when I would use the word, my key word today was miracles, but to see God make miracles out of these guys, and to hear their stories now, and then to hear them say, if it wasn't for Ray, right? Because we're all angels, right? Uh, we're all angels to somebody. And so listening to that, and how you were able to play a part in their life, man, was it really touched my heart, man. So I do appreciate that, you know.
No, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Lo.
yeah. And then hearing your story, man. So tell us when is the documentary coming out? I mean, I got just on that little piece. I wanted to, the, you know.
Well, I'm grateful to Bill O'Connell, the producer, and Chaz Palminteri is the executive producer of this project, and something that they've been working on for a while. And just the thought that a guy like Chaz Palminteri could feel that my story was important enough to bring out to the world in general, that meant a lot to me, because number one, I've always been a fan of his. And I've been a fan of A Bronx Tale. I've been a fan of the fact that he comes from the Bronx. Like Sinatra always said, if you can make it, New York, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. But I've always said, if you can make it out of the Bronx, then you can really make it anywhere, and Chaz has always been an inspiration to me. I've had different mentors throughout my whole life. My father gave me up for adoption. And that was staggering to me. That was extremely hurtful, because it made me feel like I was nobody, and it made me feel like Lowe's, in my life, I always say I am a Black Puerto Rican. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
I get very upset with my people, the Latino people, because they forget this. They forget what color this is. Okay. The wonderful Roberto Clemente taught me a long time ago, when he would do any interview, and he would always say, I am a Black Puerto Rican, and things will not always be the same, but I have to try to make it the same. And that was always something that stuck with me. And then later on, as years would pass, I would meet another Latino Yankee by the name of Louis Tiant. And Louis Tiant would always say, when he got upset with somebody, he would always say, you can kiss my black ass. You understand?
Right.
And that, to me, that was uplifting, because I never wanted to run away from the color of my skin. And that's a lie. That's a lie. We had a wonderful coach on the New York Yankees by the name of Elston Howard.
Oh, I remember Elston.
Okay. And so what happened to me when I was a bat boy for the Yankees, I used to love to shag and take batting practice with the team. And Mr. Steinbrenner would always allow that, because I could play a little bit, Lowe's, And so there was always someone, there was one guy in particular who hated the fact that George Steinbrenner had given me this opportunity in life. And one day when Steinbrenner was out of town, this gentleman, I'll be kind and call him a gentleman, walked on the field during batting practice. He was a team official, a high standing official. And he walked on the field, went to the outfield where I was shagging fly balls, and grabbed me by the arm and said, "Walk off the field with me. Don't make a scene." And so he walks me off the field into the tunnel. He took me to the visitors' locker room, and all the shoes were lined up against the wall. And he said, "Go and shine the shoes. Your people are very good at that." And as I started to shine the shoes with tears coming out of my eyes, Elston Howard walked in like a knight in shining armor and went at the guy and really said words that I don't want to say on your show out of respect to you, Lowe's, but I wouldn't say it in church, I'll tell you that. And Elston put him in his place and said, "Give me the kid." And he took me back to the Yankee locker room. And then he proceeded to tell Steinbrenner when he got back into town what had happened. And so they called me up to the office, and I had Billy Martin there. And and Steinbrenner says, "Why does this keep happening to you here?" And I said, "Because that guy is a prejudiced MF." And Steinbrenner like just stared at me. And so I said, I wish I was white so I wouldn't have to go through this. And Billy Martin just like grabbed me by the collar and shook me. And then he let me go, and he walked out of Mr. Steinbrenner's office, very, very upset. And 2 days later, Billy Martin calls me in my house. He says, "What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Nothing." "Why?" He says, "You're going to here's the address. You're going to meet me there, and we're going to have dinner there." And so it was a restaurant called Patsy's on 56 and Broadway. So I went there. I walked in, and this is 1977, I guess, 76. But anyway, I walk in, and I said to the guy, "I'm supposed to meet Billy Martin here." And the guy looked at me like, you're like, I mean, I had a big afro then, that was the style, And so then he says, "Wait here." He went upstairs, and then he came back and he says, "Follow me." He takes me upstairs at the restaurant. There's 2 levels. And then he takes me to the back of the restaurant. And there at a table is Billy Martin is sitting there. He gets him and comes over to me, and he walks me to the table. And sitting at the table was Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. And Billy says, "This is the kid, Frank." And Mr. Sinatra said, "Sit over here, son." And I sit down, and he said, "Meet Sammy." Sammy was wonderful, and a couple of other guys. I can't remember who they were. And we talked this and that. Mr. Sinatra ordered some stuff. They brought it to the table. I'm sitting there real quiet. I'm literally shaking because I knew the magnitude of these 2 men, but especially Mr. Sinatra, and because he was the leader. You could see that right away. You felt it right away. And Mr. Sinatra at one point said, "Billy told me what you said to Mr. Steinbrenner." And he, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, started to hammer me verbally. I mean, gave it to me. You've got to be proud of who you are. You must be proud of the color of your skin. I tell you this because I went through this with Smokey. That's what he used to call Sammy Davis. He said, I went through this with Smokey back in the 40s when he gave me that BS. But he says, you're lucky because I slapped Smokey. But Billy didn't slap you, and he should have. And he said, Smokey, is it true that I go? And Sammy was like totally like supporting everything that Mr. Sinatra said and what happened to him in Las Vegas when they made him stay at a different hotel, and how Mr. Sinatra's told the people at the hotel, I will not perform here if Sammy doesn't stay at this hotel with us. He can perform for you here, but he can't stay here. Nah, we ain't staying here, and we will not be performing here. I mean, he gave me a wonderful, wonderful education, and I get emotional because I was very ashamed of thinking that way. How could I think that way? How could I let my people down by thinking that way? And that's why Billy Martin means so much to me. And that's why I have such a deep respect for Mr. Sinatra. And he welcomed me on several occasions, whereas I went and met him at Patsy's, and we would have dinner or we would have lunch, and it was like, who am I to be able to have this moment, this time with this man? And you know, the funny thing, I never saw him perform.
Wow.
I never got to see him perform, but that doesn't bother me, because who got to sit down with this man and just shoot the stuff with him? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yes.
And to this day, if you walk into Patsy's and you go to the second floor, they keep a portrait there of Mr. Sinatra, of Billy, Sammy Davis Jr., and me. And I'm very, very, very proud of that, you know? And every time when I feel racism, when I feel the aspect of people, the jealousy thing, I think about that, and I take a deep breath and I say, you know, let people talk what they want. You know what I'm saying, Lowe's?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Those are special moments, and I thank you for sharing it, because you know, sometimes we think we like in the beginning, if you saw Frank Sinatra sing, like you was out there watching him sing, right? You would never know who he was as a person, right? But you knew who he was as a person, right? Even though you didn't get a chance to see him perform, right? And that's always more powerful.
Absolutely.
Than anything. My wife used to say, well,
absolutely.
You know, do you know Denzel Washington? Right? Like that. And people were like, yeah, I know Denzel Washington. He said, well, you know, my husband, he knows Denzel Washington. I mean, it's just it's a different,
right.
You know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I thank you for sharing that, because you know, even I don't have the book yet. I got to get my copy of the book, you know, The Greatest Story Never Told, right? Even to hear that about, you know, Babe Ruth, you know, and in terms of wanting to see Jackie experience or see Jackie Robinson. I mean, I didn't know that story. I mean, you know, now that's, you know, it's a part of history, right? But I learned something new even from you today, you know, that sometimes you can, just because you could see a person and think in your mind that they may be racist or they may be this kind of way, but then when you know somebody that knows somebody, right, you get a different perspective. I mean, I got totally, your story gave me 100% different perspective of George Steinbrenner, right? And one of the persons I wanted to bring up in terms of a connection was Brian Smith, right? You know, Brian was an alumnus of the Boys and Girls Club of Mount Vernon, right? He grew up in Mount Vernon, went to Mount Vernon High School, graduated, went to play football, right? And you know, Brian came back to visit the club, trying to make a decision after college. And he said, "Yeah, I was about to make a decision between going to teach, right, becoming a teacher in a school, or I got this offer to intern for the New York Yankees." Right. And I said, yeah, that's going to be a powerful choice. I don't, and of course he made the choice, right? I'm sure you heard Brian's story. you know, um, he made the choice to be an intern for the Yankees, and an incident happened, an unfortunate, r- racial incident happened with one of the administrators of the Yankees, and in the community relations, and he lost his job. And then Brian was there as the intern, and Mr. Steinbrenner had given him the job, and now I've been working over 30 years, right? And so you hear those things, and then you think better of people, right? So I thank you for sharing your story, man. And the Bat Boy. I was we met a while ago, even before because, and I got to bring up Steve Vaccaro, right? Because Steve was always interviewing people, always giving people a shot, always doing things for people. And I got a chance to come down and be on Steve's radio show, right? And then during that show, you were a part of it, and I got a chance to meet you, which was just just amazing, And you and Steve been best buddies. So talk a little bit about Steve, if you can.
Steve Vaccaro he has one of the greatest hearts ever. Uh, Steve is there for everyone, and anytime there's an issue and I ask him to help someone, he will go and do it. A beautiful thing that Steve did for me was that I had a real good friend who was a Yankee bat boy, and this kid was discovered by George Steinbrenner, a black kid, discovered by George Steinbrenner in the streets. One day Steinbrenner was a very hands-on guy. Okay. If something wasn't done, he wouldn't waste time. He would do it himself. One day he drives into the players' parking lot at the old Yankee Stadium, and there was glass all over the grounds. And he said, "You know what, Ray, go get some brooms. We're going to clean this up ourselves." And I went and got some brooms, and we started sweeping. Me and George Steinbrenner are sweeping the parking lot. And all of a sudden he sees this kid out there, and he goes to the kid, "Hey, what are you doing here? How come you're not in school?" And the kid says, "Because it's a Jewish holiday." And Steinbrenner goes, "You're not Jewish." You know what I'm saying? And so then he says, "You want to help us?" And the kid said, "Yeah." And so he got him a broom, and he helped us. He was great, wonderful. And so after we finished, as we're walking in, Steinbrenner stops, looks at the kid, and he goes, "Son, do you want a job?" And the kid says, "I would love a job." And he says, "Come on." And he took him down to the clubhouse. And just like happened to me 10 years earlier, he made him a bat boy. Okay. And Steinbrenner fell in love with this kid. The kid had carte blanche. And then he was there for like 3 years. And then one day, the kid, all of a sudden, Steinbrenner didn't see the kid. And he asked me, "Ray, where's Sam?" And I said, "Mr. Steinbrenner, I really didn't want to tell you this, but Sam quit." He said, "Why?" And I said, "Because he wanted to join the circus." And he goes, "The circus?" I said, "Yeah, he got a job with Ringling Brothers, and he's touring the world." And Steinbrenner started laughing hysterical. And I said, "Boss, what's so funny about that?" He goes, "Didn't he understand that with the Yankees, he was already in the circus?" You know what I'm saying, Lois?
Yeah.
And so Sam went on, and from the circus, he later on became a chef. and last year his son died on a drug overdose situation. 6 months later, his wife dies of a heart attack. And you can imagine the trauma. And I didn't know what to do, because it always seems like whenever anybody's in trouble, I get the call. And the only person I could think of to helping me was Steve Vaccaro. Being a psychologist, he, in essence, called Sam, and he was there for Sam, holding his hand through a very traumatic time. And I'm very, very grateful to Steve. That's just an example of the kind of person that he is, and and he's always there. And I don't have to tell you. And during the pandemic, he kept me busy as hell, because we were out in the street every day, feeding families, feeding kids, doing whatever we needed to do to help people throughout the whole time. We broke every law possible in order to help people. You know what I'm saying? We should have been arrested 3 times, but thank goodness the law understood, especially with the fact that I got 2 sons that are cops anyway. So it worked out, so that's who Steve Vaccaro is,
Yeah.
And I got and Lowe's, I got to tell you one thing about George Steinbrenner, which is Steinbrenner once said to me, we were having a very deep conversation, and he says to me, there's a very fine line between prejudice and jealousy. Like he said to me, why do you think these things happen to you, Ray, when these guys mess with you? And I said, because you got a lot of prejudice MFs working for you. That's what I said to him at the time. And he said, let me ask you a question. Could it be that maybe they're jealous of you? And I said, jealous, but I don't have anything. And he says, you have my friendship. He said, those guys just work for me. They're my necessary evil, but you're my friend. And I believe that they're jealous of you. He said, there's a very fine line between prejudice and jealousy. And as you grow up, you're going to find out that jealousy might be worse than prejudice in some cases. And Lowe's, I'm going to tell you, he was so right. He's been so right. Because jealousy can come from family, friends, anything. You know what I'm saying, Lowe's?
I understand what you're saying. Yes. Yeah. No. We not exempt from it.
Right.
at all. And yeah, that's very powerful right there to get an understanding, like, to gain that kind of understanding, for him to kind of give you that kind of wisdom, because there are some people, there are some people who are prejudiced, right? And there are some people who are jealous, of you. They envious of you,
right?
So yeah, I get it. So as we digress for a little bit, talk a little bit about you mentioned about your dad, but talk about some of the things that maybe you and your mom, and and whether or not you had siblings, and what the framework of your family around family, the importance of family, the importance of education, and the importance of faith.
Lowe's, in my house, there were 6 boys. And of the 6 boys, I'm the only one that didn't go to prison. Of the 6 boys, I'm the only one that's alive today. Talking about the aspect of one was murdered, the other one was, I mean, you name it, it's happened. And why I'm alive today, I have to say, I have to give the credit to George Steinbrenner, because the aspect of me doing graffiti outside Yankee Stadium and being caught, locked up at a holding cell at the old stadium, getting ready to be transported over to the 44th precinct, And before they could take me over there, it was the blessing that a very prejudiced policeman or security guard, let me put it to you that way, security guard said, this is where he belongs. There is nothing that you can do for these people. And when he said that, George Steinbrenner said, give me the kid. Give me the kid. And he took me to the Yankee locker room and told the equipment manager, Pete Sheehy, who had been there since the days of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, he said, Pete, get him a uniform. What's the smallest uniform you got? He said, an old Jerry Kenny #2 uniform. He said, well, take the #2 off and have him wear it tonight. He's going to be our bat boy. And the guy, the security guard, was like, what are you doing? What are you? And Steinbrenner turned to him and he said, shut up. I'm the owner of this team. And don't call me George. Call me Mr. Steinbrenner. And that's how my life there started. But getting back to my mom, I mean, my father was caught cheating on my mother. You know, she came home from work early one day and he was there with some girl that lived up in the building. And as you can imagine, the fireworks started. She ran into his room where he used to keep a pistol, and she came out with it, and she tried to shoot him, but she didn't understand that the gun had a safety. And so in essence, he got it away from her and clocked her in the head pretty good. And so he thought he had killed her. So in those days, you can go right to the airport. Kennedy Airport was called damn, I forgot the name of it. It used to be oh my God, I can't believe it. It wasn't called Kennedy Airport then, naturally, because we're talking about like 1959. And he got to the airport, flew to Cuba. My father was Cuban. Flew to Cuba, and once he got to Cuba, he called the States and found out from my mother's cousin that my mother was alive and well. And so he in turn left me in Cuba. And it took my mother 6 months to raise the money and to go into Cuba to get me out. And this was just before Castro came down from the hills to take over the place, because if not, I'd be speaking with a very heavy Spanish accent right now.
Yeah.
Has she not gone in and got me out on time? You know, and that's who my mother was. And my mother, you know, she was just incredible. She would marry my stepfather. Like she told me, I didn't love him when I married him, she says, but I knew that he loved you. So I wanted for you to have a father, you know?
Yeah.
But Lowe's, it still hurt that my biological father had given me up for adoption like that. And I used to literally walk the streets wondering, is that man my father? Is that man my father? Because we didn't have contact for many years.
Right.
You know, and so it was painful. I was angry, you know, and that's just the way it was. And so to say that I am grateful to the Yankees, to George Steinbrenner, to Reggie Jackson, to Thurman Munson, they all knew my story, and they took me on like I was their project. I was their little brother, and they treated me as such. To Billy Martin, I was his son. You know, Catfish Hunter, as you see there. Let me tell you quickly about Catfish Hunter. We were playing a spring training game, and we had gotten beat by the Mets. We were playing in St. Petersburg. The Yankees then were in Fort Lauderdale. And so we had to hurry up on the bus to get back to Lauderdale. And so we get into the bus, and I wasn't. Everybody, like, we didn't have assigned seats, but everybody always sat in the same spot. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And because I had to do all the work that day, because it was just only me and this other guy, Nick Priori, taking care of the team, I was dead tired at the end after packing the bus and everything else, this and that. And so I was laying in the back. In those days, the back of the bus, the seat ran across, and I just like laid down in the back, so you couldn't even see me. And so as we're driving off, it must have been 5-6 miles, and Catfish Hunt, all of a sudden, Catfish Hunter starts screaming, "Stop the bus! Stop the MF bus!" And the guy is like, 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 oh, and everybody's screaming, "What the hell's going on? What's going?" And Catfish screams out, "We left Ray Negron. We forgot Ray Negron." And so I scream out, "Catfish, I'm back here." He goes, "Oh, I thought we left you. Okay, let's go." and Cliff Johnson screams out, "You stopped the bus for that mother effer?" And everybody laughed. But Lowe's, I'm going to tell you something. The tears came out of my eyes because that the world champion Yankees would literally stop the bus for me. You understand what I'm saying, Lowe's?
No, I understand what you're saying.
It was all of these different things that happened that gave me, what I needed to feel like I was somebody,
Yeah.
And I got to tell you one more Steinbrenner.
Okay.
Steinbrenner had all of his friends from college, all these guys from Yale, Dartmouth, Harvard, Williams College. He had them all in his office. They were having like a little party, get together type thing that, he brought them all in. And so like, I'm standing there with all of these guys and I'm like, I'm embarrassed. And I'm looking down, like I was just embarrassed, Lowe's. And so Steinbrenner sees that, and he goes, Negron. And I look at him. He goes, "Put your head up." and I'm just staring at him. He says, "Listen to me. I know what you're thinking." He says, "But don't you understand? You graduated from the greatest college of all." And I'm looking like, what the hell is he talking about? He said, "You graduated from the University of Steinbrenner. None of these assholes could ever graduate from there."
Wow. No, that's awesome, man. Yeah. That's awesome, man, to have that, the privilege to be able to experience that. And so you're the bat boy, and then what, in terms of your career, what happens next?
This was 73 when I became the bat boy. In 1970, at the end of the 1974 season, I was thinking of joining the Army Reserve because this was like the war. Vietnam was still like there.
Mm-hmm.
But they were talking about that it might end, but it might not, this and that. It was going back and forth. And like my mother made me nervous, and my uncles, they all served in the Army, Navy, and Marines. And my father, to his credit, actually was in the Air Force. And so I was going to join the Army Reserve just because I was scared of getting drafted. I'd rather join the Army Reserve than get drafted. I was afraid of going to Vietnam and getting shot or something. You understand?
Yeah, I understand.
And so I was going to join the reserve, but then a funny thing happened on my way to the recruiter. I ended up getting drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Wow.
Okay, I ended up getting drafted in the second round by the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Okay.
So I signed with Pittsburgh. Like I talked to Mr. Steinbrenner about it. He was actually quite upset because he thought that the Yankees were going to draft me. And his scouting director was a guy named Pat Gillick, who had said to Mr. Steinbrenner, he's a good player, but I see him as like a 10th, 12th round pick. And Steinbrenner had told him, don't get this wrong or else I'm going to fire you. and I ended up getting drafted in the 2nd round.
Wow.
You know, Gillick was right because I wasn't a 2nd round player. But the day that the Pirates saw me, I was just like playing. I was like so hyped. I made some incredible plays. I hit a home run that day, etc. And I could run a little bit. I could run a 6'7", 60, which was nice. I was decent for that time.
Right.
You know, and so I signed. And when I proved to America that I couldn't hit, I was back working with the Yankees. You know, and so Steinbrenner brought me back. And he had me do a little bit of everything. You know, I was a special assistant to him. I worked in the clubhouse. I pitched batting practice. One day during throwing batting practice, I hit Willie Randolph and a guy named Rick Dempsey, and Dempsey threw his bat at me. And so the next day when I came in, Billy Martin called me in the office and he says, you're a real horseshit batting practice pitcher. So Mr. Steinbrenner wants you to learn how to use this video equipment. And the Yankees became the first team to use the videotapes to help the hitters. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I was the guy that operated that system. You know, then it wasn't like it is today. It was a nice little box. You press the button and the machine is on. You press it off, the machine is off. You know, it was very simple.
That's right. Yeah.
You know.
Oh man, that was it's so so then now you in that process and it just grows. How long you been there now?
This is my 50th year in baseball.
You said 55?
50.
50th. Wow. So that, and it looks like you had really a special relationship with Reggie.
Reggie, when Reggie first came to the Yankees in 1977, you know, unfortunately, he said some comments in a newspaper art in a magazine, of which he said that he was the straw that stirs the drink, and Thurman Munson can only stir it bad. Now he said he was misquoted, and if Reggie said he was misquoted, I'm going to believe him, you know. But a lot of the players on the team did not believe him, and in turn, they did not welcome him in open arms after saying it wasn't that he said he was the straw that stirs the drink. It was the fact that the article said that Thurman Munson can only stir it bad, and Thurman was our leader. He was our captain. He was beloved, you know, and to me, he was a big brother. And so Reggie, because he could speak Spanish, Reggie was part Puerto Rican. People didn't know that.
Wow.
And so he started talking Spanish to me. And so that's how we started our relationship. And one day, Billy Martin says to me, I see you and the big guy are very friendly. And remember, Billy couldn't stand Reggie. He said, I see you and the big guy are very friendly. And so I got scared. And I said, Billy, do you want me not to be his friend? And so then he turned to me and he says, if I find out that you unfriend him because you're afraid that I'm going to turn on you, then me and you can no longer be friends, because that tells me that you don't trust me. He said, Ray, I can't stand the MF, but I'm going to tell you something. In life, you treat a man the way he treats you. And I've seen how good he has been to you. And I appreciate that. I said, so you be his friend and understand, by you being his friend, it only helps the team. Okay, because it makes him more comfortable. And at the end of the day, I need him to win. And I want to win. I don't care about anything else. You give me 9 Adolf Hitlers, I'll take them as long as we can win.
Interesting.
Heavy, right,
Yeah,
Rose?
yeah.
So Reggie and me, we were very close. We were as close as brothers in that time. And a beautiful thing happened to me at one point, which was I started like going to Reggie's apartment to answer his fan mail. I was doing all his little errands. And so at one time, Lowe's, I was working for George Steinbrenner in the morning. And then I was working for Reggie Jackson in the afternoon. And then if we didn't have a game, I would go to Billy Martin's Cowboy store and do inventory. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you were busy.
I was busy. And with those 3 guys. And one day I go to Reggie's apartment. And so he says, don't take your coat off. We're going shopping. So that wasn't unusual because we would go shopping and I would carry the bags. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So we go to this clothing store. And when we walk into the clothing store, he tells the guy, a clothing store that I'd been with him before. And he said to the guy, Jean-Pierre, I want pants, shirts, and a couple of jackets. And so next thing you know, the guy is measuring me. And I'm saying, what's he doing? And Reggie brought me a set of clothes. And I said, Reggie, why are you doing that? And he says, if you're going to be traveling with the Yankees, you got to dress like a Yankee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was like, it was cool. It was beautiful, you know? And as you saw in the pictures there, like when we won the World Series in 77, he said to me, you know, Thurman's got his wife. Everybody's here with their wives and stuff like that, family. He says, I don't have anybody here, so I want you to stand next to me at the parade. And at the parade, I was really proud because I was there with Mr. October as we were going through the Canyon of Heroes, you know, and it was just beautiful, you know.
Yeah. And so while we're on the topic of Reggie, I was listening to something about Reggie and you trying to get Reggie to do a curtain call is one of your favorite memories, you know, with the Yankees.
Yeah, well, let me start by saying, remember I told you Thurman and Reggie had gotten, you know, they were like, things weren't good.
Oil and water.
Yes, things weren't good initially, and Thurman just didn't say anything, but he was angry, you know. And so one day we were in Detroit, and Reggie was always like the last guy out of the clubhouse. You know, he always took his time, and so then I would get a cab and we would go someplace. And so one day I go to the trainer's room to get whatever I was getting, and Thurman was there. They were working on his knees. And so Thurman says, "You still here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm waiting for Reggie." And so I said, "Hey, Reggie wants to know if you want to go with us to get something to eat." So then Thurman goes, "Reggie said that?" I said, "Yeah. He wants to know if you want to go with us." And so then he goes, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, I will." I said, "Okay, I'll have a car ready for us, all right?" And then I went over to where Reggie was, and I said, "Reggie, Thurman wants to know if you want to go get something to eat." And Thurman goes, Reggie goes, "Thurman said that?" And I said, "Yeah, he wants to know if you want to go." He goes, "Yeah, I'll go." And so then I said, "All right, I'll get the cab." And so then I went and they walked out together. You know what I'm saying? Not saying much, but they walked out together. We jumped in the cab and we went to this one of the very first sports bars ever, a place in Detroit, downtown Detroit. It was Gordie Howe. Remember
I remember Gordie Howe. Yeah.
Okay, it was his place, and we went there. It was crowded, and the guys sat together, and all of a sudden, like Thurman said something, Reggie said something. They started talking. They started talking it out. They really dissected this whole situation. They dissected it beautifully, And Thurman said to Reggie, listen, all right, but if I ever hear any more of that straw that stirs the drink BS, we're going to have some problem. You know what I'm saying? And Reggie's hung out his hand, and they shook hands. And I was like, yeah, I said, really, And then Reggie says, man, I'm glad you asked me to go out tonight, Thurman. And then Thurman looks at me like, you little mother effer. He said, you know what I'm saying? And then Reggie goes, why? What? Right, Ray lie? You know what I'm saying? And Thurman said, never mind, Reggie, never mind. And that's how they got together.
Wow.
And Reggie just recently, I was really happy that he did. He was on Howard Stern, and he told that story on the Howard Stern show. And to say that I was proud, it would be an understatement, Lowe's.
Wow.
And so let me just say, the night that what happened was Reggie was angry with the fans. That year, 1977, he was angry with the fans because the fans had sided with Billy Martin over him. And Reggie didn't understand that Billy was a hero from the 50s.
Right.
He was Billy the Kid.
That's right.
And so Reggie was really angry with the fans. So when Reggie hit the first home run, I said, Reggie, you should take a curtain call. It's the World Series. He says, nah, I ain't doing it. They don't deserve it. So the second at bat, first pitch, another home run. He comes in, and so I go over to him and I say, Reggie, curtain call. He said, I'm not doing it. No. And so then I said, if and when you hit the third home run, you will take a curtain call then, won't you? And he looks at me and he says, hey, listen, you're crazy, but I'll do it. And so next time up, first pitch, center field bleachers, home run. He comes in. You see in the footage of Reggie going to into the dugout, and Thurman is reaching out. Billy is hugging him. I mean, we were all in love at that moment. And Reggie goes into the middle of the dugout. Willie Randolph is hugging him. And so then all of a sudden I gave him a pat in the back, and then I start walking away. And then you see in the footage, you see me go, oh my, because I remembered the curtain call. And I run over to Reggie. I push Willie out of the way. And I said, Reggie, you promised the curtain call. You promised. So he looks at me, and then he walks out, and he does like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You couldn't stop him from doing curtain calls after that. Forget about it. And so after the game, Reggie is packing, and I see the bat there. And so I said, Reggie, can I have the bat? He says, what are you, crazy? He said, the only people that I'll give this bat to is the Hall of Fame. Other than that, it's coming home with me. And so I said, could you give me something that represents the night? And Reggie was undressing at that moment as I said that. And so he was taking off his jock strap, and he threw it at me. So I, in turn, took the jock strap and put it in my bag. And Reggie goes, what are you doing? And I said, "You gave me the jockstrap." He says, "Are you crazy? I was only kidding around." I said, "I'm keeping the jockstrap anyway. It's unusual." And so, and as I put it away, all of a sudden Thurman comes over, and Thurman says, "You sure did put on a hell of a show tonight, Mr. October." And Reggie looks at him like Thurman was just messing around when he said that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's just what came out of his mouth. And he was almost being sarcastic, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Reggie goes, "Mr. October, wow, I'm gonna keep that." And Thurman says, don't say I never gave you anything." And some other choice words, of which was real funny, real beautiful, real tender. Lowe's, a tender moment, and they would really become good friends. Reggie
Wow.
did a lot of little favors for him, was always doing something for him. And I mean, just too many to mention.
Yeah.
You know, and he became close with his wife, you know, and after Thurman died, like Reggie told the wife, "When I go into the Hall of Fame, I'm taking your son with me." You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
it's a lot of sweet things, you know.
Yeah. I would I know my wife is, she's my executive producer back there, but I know that, man, my father-in-law, if he was alive, right, he would have loved this conversation. I mean, because he was a Yankee through and through, and he would have really loved this conversation and hear these stories. I mean, he probably would have just lost his mind, you know, because he was always watching the Yankees, man, always watching baseball. And yeah, I know he would have just loved this conversation, man. I'm sure he's listening. He's up in heaven. He's
Oh, you
listening,
better
like,
believe
wow.
he's probably sitting there with George.
Right. Oh man, yeah, just wonderful. And I got some pictures um, of you. I got a bunch of pictures, and being in that whole experience. He said my dad had a Mickey Rivers call me one night. Yeah, and my wife is a big baseball fan. Yeah, she's a daddy's girl. Uh, she taught her about football. You know, taught her about baseball. Talked to her about all these greats. And it would, I'm sure he'd be mesmerized by right now. And so uh, Dale Austin, yeah,
I remember Dell Olson
yeah,
I fondly remember Dell. He was important to us in 1977. You know, and he was a very scholarly young man. You know, very intelligent and good person. And you know, I have not seen him since then. You
right,
know, but Dell. I was very fond of Dell.
yeah, yeah, man. Just the awesome man. My wife said he was from Yonkers, but yeah, just awesome, man. Having this conversation with, it's been wonderful. And here goes some of the people. Uh, you might want to, of course, I mentioned Mariano earlier in the show. Of course, Reggie we mentioned, and then my who I thought I was growing up was James Brown. Of course, you know, I was
Let,
mad.
let, let, let me tell you about Mr. Brown. Okay. I met James Brown early 90s. We became friends through a mutual guy, a music promoter by the name of Bobby Rossi, who introduced us. Mr. Brown loved baseball. Mr. Brown played baseball in his youth. Mr. Brown thought that he was a great pitcher and should have played in the Negro Leagues. He wanted to meet Dwight Gooden. So I fulfilled his wish and brought out with Dwight Gooden to him because he wanted to give Dwight pitching lessons.
Yeah.
And he got to give Dwight pitching lessons. This is when Dwight first signed with the Yankees. And me and Mr. Brown became really, really good friends. Mr. Brown found out that I loved Elvis Presley.
Me too. So
I loved Elvis very, very much. And Mr. Brown, I had found out, was a disciple of Elvis Presley. He loved Elvis. He called him Mr. Elvis. Okay. And Elvis loved Mr. Brown. And Mr. Brown would tell me some wonderful, wonderful stories about him and Elvis. You know, he told me an incredible story about when Mac Davis, the great singer Mac Davis, introduced Elvis to the song "In the Ghetto." And what had happened was certain members of Elvis's entourage, you know, you got to remember, those are Southern boys. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, definitely.
And so not everybody was going to be like Elvis. You know what I'm saying? You are who you are. You know what I'm saying? I have prejudiced friends who are my friends because they treat me right.
Right.
You understand? But I know that they're prejudiced, you know, but that's just the way it is. And same thing with Elvis. And so some of his guys started like putting it into his head that he shouldn't do that song, that he had already done enough for the blacks. And Elvis told that to Mr. Brown. And Mr. Brown said to Elvis that he had to do that song because coming from him, it would have an incredible impact. And ironically speaking, that was probably Elvis's last number one song. He had more hits after that, but I think that was his last number one, you know, In the Ghetto. And like again, I emphasize the beauty of the things that I would learn. I got to know Elvis's wife, Priscilla, and other people, and the aspect of me being a man of color. I was curious. I wanted to know for sure, because they always say you shouldn't. You sometimes your heroes aren't who they are cut out to be, and I can honestly say that I love Mr. Brown. He will always be a hero, and I loved Elvis too. He will always be a hero in my mind, no matter what.
Yeah, mine too. And Mr. Brown was number one. That was my after school dance. I get in there, put James Brown on, and I do my little James Brown act. I used to run through it, and they used to tease me because my name was Lowe's, right? So I
Okay.
go to school, like elementary school and stuff like that, and they call me, Knowles-Moore, Lois Lane, where's Superman? It's just crazy stuff. And I used to come home and tell my mom, I'm like, yeah, my mom, they keep teasing me, they keep calling me these names. I want my name to be changed to James Brown. I want to be James Brown. Change my
Oh
name,
my
Yeah. But my mom used to always say that my name was gonna be great one day. You got a great name. Did you see that question down there? He said he worked security for the Yankees between 1979 and 1985. Uh, met met Ray a few times. Great storytelling. His great storytelling. Yeah. I was Ron Brown. Ron Brown? I think he was in administration. He was
Rob
doing
Brown, one of the great people ever to work for the New York Yankees. One time when somebody was trying to set me up,
Mhm.
because they were trying to get rid of me. And Rob Brown found out and said, if you're going to try to frame Ray, you can't use money, because more than anybody, he doesn't care about money. So you're pissing up a rope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he supported me, came and told me what was happening, and you know, again, you know, Rob Brown, class act, wonderful family. I'm forever grateful for the friendship that I had with him.
Yeah, and we were at the second annual Bronx Basketball Hall of Fame last week, the week before last, and Ron was there because I know he had retired from the Yankees, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, I've known Ron for a few years. We've been at several fundraisers and stuff like that. So as we come to a close, man, talk to us about, how important. I mean, there's several other people in there, and there you are in front of those pictures with the greats. But talk about a little bit about community service, and then talk about writing the books. I mean, you got a number of books. How did you get into that whole situation? There's the Batboy. I think they did a play about you. So talk a little bit about those things before we get off. I
Well,
mean,
believe it or not, the book ideas came from George Steinbrenner. You know, he knew I loved the arts. I left the Yankees a couple of times thinking that I was going to be the next Robert De Niro or Sidney Poitier.
Right.
So I went and I actually went to Hollywood and did some movies. And but doing one or two movies here or there, that doesn't pay the rent, and it doesn't always bring food on the table. And so Steinbrenner always kept the door open. You know, one time when I went back, like as I was walking into the stadium, he says, "What took you so long?" you know, I mean, so things like that. You know, I mean, because I've always been fascinated with the arts, and know the fact that when you know someone like a Frank Sinatra or Sammy Davis Jr., you're going to meet great people. And I got to work in a wonderful film called The Cotton Club.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, with the great Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes.
Gregory Hines.
Yeah.
Richard Pryor. Richard Gere. I mean, just Nicolas Cage. Maurice Hines.
Yeah.
I mean, the education that I got in working in that film for 6 months, and I mean, you get intoxicated. Okay. You get intoxicated with, in a film like that, everybody was showing up. De Niro, Pacino, they would all show up just to see the shooting. I mean, just the people that I met just from that film alone. So you want to be in the arts, and these things were all very important to me, and I loved it, and I couldn't get enough of it. And Mr. Steinbrenner knew so many incredible people. He introduced me to James Cagney, who again, another hero of mine. I once went to Mr. Cagney and I said, Mr. Cagney, Mickey Rivers isn't, what do you call it? If you talk to him, this might help him. Because Mickey was the type that every once in a while he just would lollygag or stuff like that. He either wanted to steal bases, they want to steal bases, stuff like that. So Mr. Cagney went and actually talked to Mickey. They actually danced together a couple of times, and things like that, So the blessing of the wonderful, wonderful people in all walks of life, especially the arts, I was so blessed. And Steinbrenner used to say to me, you're a very lucky young man.
Mm.
someday take that and do something with it. And so I want, I said, I like to do a book maybe. And he said, what kind of book do you want to do? And I said, what do you think if I do a children's book? And he said, great idea, because then you can really share your soul and things to that effect with the children. And he was big with the kids. The boss was big with the kids, But by the time I started writing my books, I had my children were little kids, and he loved my kids. He loved my boys. Oh my God. And so if I was ever in trouble with him and I had to go see him, I would send my youngest son upstairs first to his office. Okay. And then at the first time I did that, I sent my son Ricky up. I said, Ricky, do me a favor, go upstairs, see the boss, just talk with him. And so he went upstairs because I knew that the boss was going to be a sucker for that,
Yeah.
And then I would walk into the office and he said, Ricky, I'm going to cover your ears for 1 minute. And he goes like this to Ricky's ears. And then he looks at me, he says, you're an asshole. And yeah, I said, okay, but listen, it worked. I gave it a shot, And so anyway, that's how my first book, which was The Boy of Steel, was born. And a funny thing happened on my way to the bookstore. It became the number 2 book in the country. The number 2 children's book in the country. It was the number 1 book, international book. It won International Book of the Year. And so naturally the haters came out, and it was like one guy in particular says, no way that he did that book. He couldn't have done that book, et cetera, et cetera. And so Steinbrenner fired the guy.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he came to me and he said, you know what they said about you in your book? And I said, I hear it. He said, okay, well, I'm glad you heard it. Now, this is what you're going to do. You're going to write another book just to show them that first one wasn't a fluke. So Lowe's, I went back to HarperCollins and I said, you guys want another book? And they said, we'll give you, they said to me, we'll give you a 2-book deal. And I said, good, where do I sign? And I signed the book, and that's how The Greatest Story Never Told was born. Because I had already formulated in my brain anyway. Okay. And so, and you know how I did that book? I was friends with Babe Ruth's granddaughter, and I went to visit her in Connecticut. And one day, as I was leaving her house, she says to me, you want to see some of Babe's old stuff? And I said, yeah. And she took me down to the basement, and they had like a trunk there, and he had all these letters and stuff like that. And in the process of reading all the different things and some real old newspaper articles, I found a letter about the Babe leaving the hospital to go visit Ebbets Field for opening day of 1947 to see Jackie. And that's how that story happened. And that's how I was able to put that together, so that when Mr. Steinbrenner said, you need to come out with another book right away to show that the first one wasn't a fluke. And man, I came out with that book, and I was so proud of it. It jumped to number 1 right away on Amazon. And my third book, Goodbye to Yankee Stadium, that was number 1. And then I did a book with C.C. Sabathia, because I wanted to have the first Christmas story, the first baseball Christmas story had never been done before. And so I did C.C. Claus. The reason I picked C.C. was because at the time he was fat. And so I just came up with a natural idea that Santa Claus was sick. So C.C. would put on Santa Claus outfit and deliver all the toys on Christmas Eve. And that's those are my books. And then naturally, listen, I've written 30 books, but those were the ones that got published. Those popped out right away. and then I kept writing and writing and writing. So I mean, I have a lot of books in my computer right now.
Wow, I love it, man. I love it because I've been thinking about that. I did some speaking engagements at a couple of schools, elementary schools, and they were talking about, man, you ought to put your story into a children's book. So that was something that I've been formulating some things in my phone to be able to do that. So yeah, I enjoy it because I think people need to hear the stories. You
Well,
know.
you know what? The whole thing is, Lowe's, like, I'm afraid of adults. I love the kids.
Mm.
And I, I consider myself an ambassador to the children of the world, in essence. I mean, when I see the kids, when I walk around Yankee Stadium, I walk around with my World Series ring, and I let the kids all wear it. And I always tell them, you can get your own ring someday. You're going to be a world champion someday. And that's important to me. And because the first book is about a little boy with cancer, I have visited many cancer hospitals, naturally Sloan and Hackensack Medical, etc., what have you. And I'll never forget that this one little boy who had cancer said to me, "Mr. Negron, do you think that if I do one good thing a day, God is going to let me go to heaven?"
Mm.
And I thought that was very profound. And I told him, "Hey, God is going to let you go to heaven anyway someday. But first off, we got to beat this thing that you're dealing with. But God's definitely going to let you go to heaven."
Wow.
And another little boy at another place says to me, "Why do you love the kids so much?" And, maybe I shouldn't have said it, but I said, "Because you haven't been polluted yet by the adults."
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying, Lowe's?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, because when the kids have that childlike behavior, their innocence.
Right.
They haven't lost their innocence.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so yeah, before they lose their innocence, they're just beautiful. Just they see no color, right? They don't know hatred. I mean, and yeah, that's most of all what I really really love about kids. Yeah. So Ray, before it seems like I'm having some little bit of difficulty here in terms of this technology, but real quick, I can't let you get off. That's Brian Smith right there.
Right.
Yeah, I can't let you get off. You got to talk about wife and family uh, before we get off here. I don't want nobody to be mad at me.
I have a great wife. I have a great wife who was she started as my business manager.
Mm.
And I was with my children, and she always was taking care of my kids, and she's been there for them from day one, since they all came back to New York with me. Like Lowe's, I was divorced. I've been married 3 times.
Mm.
And as you know, sports isn't like the greatest life for a wife, especially when you're traveling around, etc., what have you. But when I got divorced from my kid's mom, I fought like crazy to have my kids, because I didn't want to be like my father. And my wife, my then wife, lived in Michigan, and I didn't
Mm.
want my kids raised in Michigan, especially where she lived. That it wasn't happening. And after a lot of debate, she agreed to let me raise the children here in New York, because I told her there'd be more opportunities. And so in essence, I had my youngest son, Ricky, that I had to have with me all the time. And so I said to Mr. Steinbrenner, I don't know what I'm going to do because of the situation with my son. And he says, you will have him at the ballpark with you every day. He said, number one, you got to come to work, and you will have Ricky at the ballpark every day, and I will have every cop, every security guard on call to be watching out for him in case. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so every day I would come into the ballpark, and Ricky would run to the batting cage. He would either run to the clubhouse or the batting cage, but he loved being in the batting cage. And he would be in there, and he was basically raised with the Derek Jeter Yankees. You know, he would literally became to the point where he would actually help A-Rod loosen his muscles up and all that kind of stuff. You know, and that son actually ended up playing professional baseball with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Wow.
And after a couple of years, his dream, because he was burnt out of baseball, was to be a police officer like his oldest son. And so I have two sons that are police officers. And my third son was the New York State light heavyweight champion. He was a boxer and a Golden Gloves champion.
Wow. Okay.
You know, so and then my daughter, I have a daughter, Tony, who gave me my first grandson. So I'm more proud of her than my boys. She gave me my first grandson, Prince Rowan, and I'm very proud of him. And you know, I mean, what can I say? And I mean, I'm a very blessed guy in that. I'm poor. And I like I told you before, I don't care about money. So as long as, like I tell my wife Teresa, as long as we pay our mortgage and we have food, we're rich.
That's right.
I have wonderful kids. None of them went to jail. They're all great. They're wonderful people. They're loving. You know, my two policemen's son aren't on the take with anybody. You know, when they became police officers, Lowe's, I'm going to tell you something. I sat down with them. I said, I don't give a damn how many guns you guys have, that you got handcuffs and all that kind of stuff. If I ever find out that you become dirty, I says, I will always love you as your father. I'm not going to I says, but I'm going to beat the living hell out of you. I will go to prison. I will go to prison because of beating the hell out of you guys. I said, you guys, please, you cannot let God and people down. You're here to serve and protect. And my sons they're hey, I'm a dad, and I'm gonna say it anyway. They're great people.
Right.
They're great people, and I'm proud more of that than anything else in the world, that my kids are great people. Because if you can raise your children to be great people, you've done your job.
Wow. Ray, this has been amazing. I want to thank you for taking time out your busy schedule to join me this evening.
Hey, Lowe's, one thing I'm going to say to you.
Yes.
One thing I'm going to say to you, talking about Doc Gooden, I did a book with Doc Gooden years ago called Heat, and that was sold to Warner Brothers. Okay, the book Heat was sold to Warner Brothers, and your best friend was supposed to play Dwight Gooden. Who am I talking about? Your best friend.
Who, Denzel?
That's right.
Wow.
He was supposed to play Dwight Gooden, and I mean, we signed contracts and everything. Okay, and unfortunately, a mishap happened, and Warner Brothers dropped the project after Dwight got into a scuffle. You know, there was a clause in the contract that if whatever, that they weren't gonna, because they knew the story, they knew what the ending was supposed to be, if you know what I mean.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, Ray, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you, man. I'm gonna let you get back to your family, man. And I look forward to doing some things in the future, man.
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate it, Lowe's. I'm always been a fan of yours, and I'm a fan of your achievements. I'm a fan of the fact that you were a professional basketball player in the NBA. Come on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And yeah, let's when I get back in town, I'm gonna give you a holler. I'm gonna give you a call.
I'm gonna take you on if you ever watch my Instagram, you ever see me taking my shots?
No, I haven't. I'm gonna have to go in there and check it out.
Okay, so in the spring, I'm gonna take you on to a three-point shooting contest.
Let's do that. I'm always up for a challenge. And then we might have to go to the batting cage.
No, you'll win there. I can't swing the bat anymore.
Okay. All right, Ray. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you always.
Yes, sir. All right. That's Ray Negron. A awesome interview. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight on the Blueprint Podcast. Look, I hope you enjoyed those stories as much as I did. They were amazing stories. He's an amazing man, right? Make sure you go out and get his books, right? The Greatest Story Never Told. I got to get mine. I'm definitely going to get mine, but I want to check out some of his other books as well. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. My guest, Mr. Reginald Howard, from the Negro League. He's a Negro League baseball player. He started out in the Negro League as a bat boy, and eventually he became a Negro League player. So I look forward to seeing you next week. And I say each and every week, if God allows you to wake up tomorrow, make tomorrow your masterpiece. God bless you, and I love you.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.